He walked into the courtroom with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of being protected. The badge on his chest wasn't just metal, it was a shield, symbol that had defended him through complaints that went nowhere, warnings that stayed buried, and moments that were quietly erased. He believed this day would end the same way. He was wrong. Across the room sat a woman the system never expected to speak this far. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't famous. She didn't have connections. She was a black woman who had learned early how easily truth could be dismissed when power decided otherwise. And yet, she was here, not angry, not shaking, just ready. For years, he had worn the uniform with ease. Inside the department, he was trusted, dependable. Someone people said they could rely on. His record looked clean on paper, and that paper had protected him more times than anyone cared to count. Outside that world, though. Stories followed him quietly. Whispers. Patterns. Women who told themselves it wasn't worth the fight. Women who learned that silence was often safer than speaking. Their encounter began as something routine. A moment that should have passed without consequence. Authority met vulnerability. And in that space, something crossed a line that would never be written into any official report. She carried it alone at first. Like so many others, she weighed the cost of truth against the risk of being disbelieved. The system had made that calculation familiar. When she finally spoke, the response was immediate and predictable. There was doubt. There were questions that turned back on her. Suggestions that she had misunderstood, reminders of his reputation. The focus was never on what happened, but on whether she could prove it, and he watched it unfold with quiet confidence. He had seen this process before. He trusted it. What he didn't know was that she had been paying attention in a way the system never does. She didn't rely on memory alone. She wrote things down, dates, locations, small details that didn't seem important at first. And as time passed, something else emerged. Other stories, separate voices that sounded disturbingly similar. Stories that had never been connected because no one had bothered to connect them. By the time the case reached court, this was no longer about one moment. It was about a pattern. He sat comfortably as the proceedings began. His lawyer spoke of misunderstandings, of a spotless career, of reasonable doubt. The familiar language of protection filled the room. Then she stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She didn't ask for sympathy. She laid out a timeline so clear, so precise that the air in the room shifted. One incident could be dismissed. 2 could be questioned. But 5, aligned in detail and separated only by silence, demanded attention. The badge stopped carrying the weight it once did. As evidence unfolded, the story widened. Internal emails surfaced, warnings that had been noted but never acted on. Transfers that replaced accountability. Decisions that chose convenience over responsibility. It became clear that this wasn't just about one man who believed he was untouchable. It was about a system that had helped make him believe it. The moment everything changed wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The kind of silence that comes when excuses run out. The kind that forces a room to reckon with what it has allowed. The verdict didn't undo the harm. Justice rarely does. But it ended something that should have ended long before. His career disappeared without ceremony. No public defense. No shield left to hide behind. Just consequences that arrived years too late. For her, the victory wasn't about celebration. It was about being believed. It's about knowing that her voice had finally been heard without being reshaped, doubted, or dismissed. This story isn't rare. It's just rarely told all the way through. Power survives on silence, and silence thrives when people think they're alone. She wasn't protected by the system. She changed it by refusing to disappear inside it. He walked into that courtroom believing his badge would speak louder than truth. He believed authority would outweigh preparation. He believed history was on his side. He was wrong, because truth doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it arrives calm, documented, and impossible to ignore. So the real question is this: how many stories never reach this point because the wrong person never brings them to court? And how many threads remain unpulled because silence still feels safer than truth? The threads of truth. We tell the stories that power hoped would fade. Because every time a thread is pulled, something hidden is revealed. If you believe these stories need to be heard, subscribe to our channel and join the conversation. Thanks for watching.